This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, James, this is the high-risk recurrent advanced prostate cancer call for the 20th of April, Monday, the 20th of April. And I'm going to do a quick roll call and see who would like some time. We don't have anybody new. We got told off in one of our groups recently, I think it was the active surveillance, that we don't explain how these calls work. That's largely because we don't always have new men and everybody knows how they work. But for the sake of anybody who listens later who might not know, we always give priority to new men. Then we check who needs some time, and then we figure out how much time everybody gets after the new men. So I'll start off with Len. Len, anything you'd like to talk about tonight?
Nothing for me, Rick. Thank you.
Okay. Jake, anything you'd like to talk about tonight?
No, thank you. You spent time with me last week. I got to say, I'm thrilled to see Dennis Correa's face. Hearing his voice for years, but never saw his picture. So it's great.
That's for you, Jake.
You know, I did have an advantage because Dennis and I have met on many occasions, so I knew who was speaking. But I know it's fantastic when you see somebody that you haven't seen, you've never seen, but you feel like you know these people. It's wonderful. It's even better when you get to meet people in person who you've never met. That's a real treat. Okay, Peter, anything you'd like to talk about tonight?
Not as it relates to me, but just an interesting phenomenon that doesn't necessarily relate to advanced guys, but it does a little bit, just in terms of sign of the times and how to deal with things.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll have time tonight, so we can definitely. And these things always seem to develop a life of their own, and then it does pertain to people in the group, so I'm sure that it's going to be relevant. Bill Franklin, anything you'd like to discuss tonight?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thought I'd join in and help if I can.
We always love that. Mr. Pelfrey down in Mexico.
Nothing tonight. Doing fine.
Okay. Dennis, anything you'd like to tell us about now that we can see you?
Well, just a quick update on my rescheduling my scans, my annual checkup.
That's good. Dennis McGuire, we've got to work on you, man, to get your image up here.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
Okay.
One dentist at a time.
Well, okay. We can't have Dennis the Menace here.
Yeah. So, quick update.
Okay, you got it. Jay, anything you'd like to talk to us about?
Not tonight. Nothing.
Okay. Joe Blanchette, anything for you?
Yes, a few words from me on an update and a few words from Dr. Antonarakis.
Okay, excellent. Always good. Les, anything you'd like to talk to us, tell us about?
No, not tonight. Probably next week, though. Thanks.
Okay, Sylvester, for you?
No, thank you.
Okay, and Carl, anything that you'd like to talk about?
Well, since you went around the whole room here and there weren't that many people who wanted to or had anything to say, I might as well have something to say.
Okay, I know I could depend on you, Carl. and when we get to you, I may have something for you too. So we'll, I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to get around everybody. Okay, let's.
Quick question: Is Jerry listed twice?
Jerry Pelfrey?
Yeah, Jerry P.
What was it?
Because he wasn't. Go ahead, Jerry.
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, don't worry. We're just checking if you were listed twice, but I don't think so. You were on the phone, but you hung up on the phone, I think.
No,
No,
but it's still
no,
showing up.
I came right on to the internet. I didn't use the phone.
Well, then we have a Jerry P. you need to check with, Rick.
Yeah. So did I miss somebody here?
Like usual, but that's okay, Rick, because I don't have anything to say.
But wait a minute. Wait a minute. We don't. Wait. Oh, you're there. There's Larry. I did miss you. How the heck did I miss you?
You know, that weird thing is happening again where when I go to sign on and ask me to put my name in,
Yeah.
and every time it says list your name, it doesn't used to be automatic, and now it's not.
Don't know. Anybody else finding trouble with that?
It's not actual trouble, but it's annoying.
Okay. Well, nobody wants to risk annoying Mr. Fish. Let me just tell you. Well, yeah, we do have somebody else that's on the telephone. You're right. It says Debbie, and then we've got JP, and it's a telephone caller. I thought it was Jerry that was on the phone. Is there somebody on the telephone that we haven't identified who would like to be identified?
My name's John. I'm a new guy.
Ah, thank you, John. Well, I'm so
Somebody
sorry.
put down Jerry P.
Okay, and you've never been with us before, John?
No.
Okay, well then, you are very welcome to kick off. And I guess we screwed up when we identified people. What we normally do is we ask the new guys, as I said before, to take the floor to begin with, only if you're comfortable. Tell us a little bit about your background, your disease history, where you are in the process, how old you are, who's treating you, et cetera, and if you've got any questions for us. Are you comfortable doing that?
Yeah. Let's make sure I even fit the criteria for this group, because I heard somebody say it was a high-risk recurrent group. So I got the name, I got the phone number from the nurse at my local hospital.
Okay.
That's doing all this. I'm 70 years old, and I have high-risk invasive and metastatic, but can't really be called recurrent quite yet. I only had my surgery a couple of weeks ago, but there was, metastases to lymph nodes, and I'm sure that they didn't get everything. So I'm probably going to be starting radiation and hormone treatment in a couple of weeks after a few more weeks after I heal up. So I'm kind of a newcomer, but at the same time, I'm kind of a high-risk person also. So I don't know if the nurse was assigning me to a particular group or just giving me a variety to try.
No, you're in the right group. If you
Are you guys on FaceTime or something?
We're on GoToMeeting.
GoToMeeting? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you can join us if you're comfortable. You can give us your email on the call, or you can send me your email, and we'll make sure you get on the reminder list. We meet every single week, and
okay.
And you can join online, or you can join by telephone, as you have done. And as you have gathered, when you join online, you can choose to show your face, or you may not choose to show your face. Or you may have an old camera and may not be able to show your face. The answer to whether you're in the right group is yes, you are in the right group. We have a low and intermediate group, which actually Peter, who's on this call, moderates. And a lot of times we will have people stay in that group after their surgery, but if they were high risk and metastatic, or you found out that you were metastatic during your surgery, then it probably makes sense for you to be here if you feel comfortable being here. But we do have some advanced guys here, and sometimes that's off-putting for certain people.
Well, I'm sort of facing that's what I'm headed for. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, of course, it's off-putting because I'm a beginner at this too. But these are sounds like these are the guys that I need to hear from.
These are the guys who will help you. And as they say in the old country, in for a penny, in for a pound. So why don't you start at the beginning? Tell us when you were first diagnosed, what your Gleason was, what your PSA was, and just run through it, and then we'll pick it up when you've done that.
Way back about 15 years ago, I had a biopsy and was found to have high-grade PIN, and so ever since then I've been monitored very closely with usually 2 PSAs a year. So I always thought that whenever it converted into cancer, I would get it very early.
Mm-hmm.
But last fall, my PSA started going from the 1s up into the 3s, and then they say repeat it in a few months and repeat it in a few weeks and blah, blah, blah. So what finally ended up was that when it got up to about 6.5, they scheduled me for the biopsy. And then the biopsy led me 8 weeks later into the radical prostatectomy. I had a terrible time deciding between surgery and radiation treatment because I got all these different opinions. But anyway, I finally decided on the surgery. And so in terms of your specific questions, so my Gleason is 9, and my the prostate had the seminal vesicles were invaded and the lymph nodes were positive, and somehow the damn thing really got a chance to get pretty advanced before we even caught up with it. So that was a big disappointment. So that's kind of my situation. I'm shortly post-op now, and they want me to wait a certain number of weeks and get another PSA and presumably start in with like Lupron and then radiation to try to get whatever else is in the pelvis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me ask you a few questions here. When you, the biopsy that you had that showed, did that show you a 4+5, or is it the post pathology from the surgery that showed you a 4+5?
The post.
It was the post. And what did the biopsy show?
The biopsy before the surgery had me as a 4+4.
It's a 4+4. So they upped you after surgery.
Yeah.
And how much cancer was there in the biopsy? How many cores and how many were positive?
There were 16 samples taken, and 8 of them were positive.
Okay. Okay, that sort of gives us a good idea of roughly how much cancer they were taking out. Do you know if any of that cancer was in the base?
I don't know that. I'm sure that if I dug up the report, because I can remember them mapping them out, you know, here's the base and here's the other parts, but I don't remember if it was or not. Is the base the part up against the rectum?
No, the base is up against the bladder. It's upside down.
Oh, okay.
So it's important to know if you've got cancer in the base, because it's more likely to have moved than say if it were in the apex. But I'm just sort of rubbing. Now, you said you have positive lymph nodes in the pelvis. Did they see any bone metastasis?
No.
Good. Okay,
they did a bone scan before my surgery and it didn't find any.
Excellent. And what was your PSA right before you had the surgery?
5.7.
Okay.
So this cancer doesn't seem to make an awful lot of PSA, really. I mean, my brother had prostate cancer. He just had one little bit of cancer in one core, which they watched for 3 years, and his PSA was almost 30. But I've got cancer on both sides of the prostate and pushing through it, and I had a PSA of only 5.7 just before my operation.
Yeah. So we see different men making different amounts of PSA. A lot of time, I mean, there's one gent on this call who you'll meet whose PSA was well over 3,000 when he was diagnosed. He was metastatic, but he makes a lot of PSA. We've had other men who are metastatic, and even before treatment, their PSA is much more than in the 20s. I've known men who have had 4+4 disease and had their prostates removed, and their PSA was never greater than 1. By and large, this isn't always true. Like my friend who has a PSA who had a Gleason of 8 post pathology and had very low, his disease has remained fairly stable. But generally, disease that is aggressive and doesn't make a lot of PSA can be more difficult to treat. It's something that you definitely should be talking about with your doctor. We'll talk about your doctor momentarily, but it's definitely something you should be talking about and be aware of, that PSA, that disease that doesn't make a lot of PSA and has a high Gleason can be a sign of being difficult to treat. And as soon as we open this up, I'm going to ask, because I think we've got men on the call who have been in that category. Where are you being treated?
In Connecticut.
Okay, and which hospital?
This group of Hartford Hospital.
Hartford Hospital. Okay, because we have some Connecticut people on the call, so that will be familiar. And right now, who is your main doctor? Is it still the urologist?
Yes, Dr. Kessler.
Okay. And Kessler, now you said to me, I thought that your PSA is now 1.4 after surgery. Did you say that?
Haven't gotten one since the surgery yet. It's only been 2 weeks.
Okay, then I don't know what I was hearing. I was imagining stuff, so that's not good. But I'm glad that it isn't, that is not the number. So you're waiting now to get your number. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask my co-moderator, who is a Connecticut native, kinda, for his thoughts, and then we're going to open it up. And I particularly would like to hear from any men who were high Gleason, low PSA, and suddenly and immediately found themselves pretty much in a recurrent scenario. One thing I will tell you, John, which is relatively recent research, and And the name of the trial starts with an R. I can't remember. Maybe Len will remember. I'll look it up. That we do see that it doesn't hurt, at least in the clinical trial, to delay your salvage, to delay your adjuvant radiation for a few months. You know, we always thought you have to jump in right away.
That's kind of reassuring to know, because it seems like every time I have to wait a month or 2 months for something, it gets more advanced, and I'm always failing to catch it.
We will. I'll look up the name. Len, do you remember the name of the trial? Restore, was it?
No, I don't. But I do recall reading that there was no urgency.
Yeah.
To do salvage right after surgery. It's probably not a good idea, particularly if you haven't recovered urinary function yet.
Yeah.
No, not even close to that.
Resist? Was that the one?
I'll look it up right now. So Len, why don't you speak to John and move it on, and I'll see if I can find the name of this trial so we can send it to John.
Yeah.
And what's your name that's moderating?
My name is Rick.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Rick.
And our co-moderator here, our co-moderators are Len and Jake.
Okay, hi guys.
John, this is Len, and I live in Danbury, Connecticut. What town are you in?
Canton.
Canton. Do you know how far that is from Danbury?
Hour and a half or something like that.
Yeah, the only reason I ask is because there's a fantastic local prostate cancer support group in Danbury, but it's an awfully long ride for you. I'm sure you don't want to do that every month. Although now that we have coronavirus, the calls are virtual like this one, so you might want to join that call.
Oh.
It's the first Wednesday of the month. But you're in good hands here. You're actually in better hands here.
Yeah, you're probably in better hands here than you are.
Yeah, it's true.
In there. So anyway, go for it, Len.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all agree here that you should never look back on the choices you made. But I mean, I can't help but wish you had been with us before you chose surgery. With your disease characteristics, I suspect most of us here would agree radiation might have been a better choice. But, you know, it's water under the bridge, and we'll help you navigate and manage your disease given where you are right now. I guess the only thing I want to say right now, I think they have to wait at least 2 months, maybe 3 months before they do a PSA check to make sure there's.
He has it scheduled for 4 weeks from now, which is 6 weeks from the surgery.
Okay, it's a little early, but you know, I suppose most inflammation is gone by then. So, in the surgery, did they remove your seminal vesicles, and did they remove any lymph nodes?
Yes.
They did. Oh. How many lymph nodes were involved?
Involved meaning had cancer in them?
Yes.
Only one.
Oh. Okay. All right, then maybe surgery wasn't such a bad option, but.
I think you're right, though. You know, I had 3 opinions in favor of surgery and 1 against, but I think the guy that was against was the one with the best clinical judgment, because looking back on it, where it's easy to be smart, I think I was way too high risk to go through surgery. I mean, the chances of a cure from surgery were pretty close to 0, and they didn't really I don't think appreciate that. They, gave me all these rosy sounding cure rates, but now that I know more, I can see that I was too high risk for surgery.
Yeah. So do you have a medical oncologist on your care team yet?
There's one in the group. I think Camrat is his name, something like that. I did meet him. He was one of the consultants at the beginning. He did encourage me to do surgery first. I did like him. He was a Hartford Hospital guy. So he will probably be the medical oncologist that I continue to work with.
And do you know if he's a GU medical oncologist?
Yes, I think he is.
Okay. How far is Yale University from where Canton is?
About an hour and a quarter.
Okay. So Hartford is closer for you.
Yeah, and there's also a local cancer center that does radiation that's in the very next town.
Hmm. Well, we always like people to go to the what we call the NCCN hospitals, National Comprehensive Cancer Network of hospitals. Those are considered by the National Cancer Institute to be the best hospitals in the country for cancer care. And I believe Yale is among those. Don't believe Hartford is. I'm just letting you know what our typical advice is, but if your care can be better coordinated at these major cancer centers, and chances of you getting, better radiology care, better surgery, better anything, it would be at one of these major centers.
I would have probably gone somewhere to Boston or New York for a consultation, except for we were right into our coronavirus escalation, and I couldn't really travel or get face-to-face consultations, and I didn't get anywhere on the telephone, so I didn't really end up going to any major center before my surgery.
Well, let me just comment on that, John. I think you have to be very sure that this medical oncologist does have a genitourinary practice, that he specializes in that. And even if he does, we would encourage you to get a second opinion before you enter into treatment with from another GU med-onc. Most of these people will give you today a consult with telehealth. We've seen this happen probably 2 or 3 times in the last 2 months, and we can help you make it happen. For example, places like Memorial Sloan Kettering or Dana-Farber.
Yeah, I spent time on those 2 websites.
Right. Well, I think we can help you so that you can decide. I mean, our view is maybe a little different to other people in that we do feel that when you have complex disease like you want a quarterback who's a genitourinary medical oncologist and a well-qualified one. There are people who argue, no, that your next doctor should be the radiation oncologist. We're not convinced about that. And the reason we're not convinced is because as soon as you involve systemic treatment, which you will be with the Lupron, then the type of doctor you want is a doctor who can address the systemic effect. which
Okay.
even though the radiation oncologists think they can, they're really not on top of it as doctors who are trained as internists. And it's a tricky and a difficult situation. I see Russ Smith has just joined us. And I'd like to just ask Russ, did you hear the beginning of John's story?
I did. I was probably 5 minutes into it when I joined.
Okay, well, very quickly, John's history of issues with his prostate goes back 15 years. He's now 70. But in 2019, he had a biopsy showing 4+4 and about half the cause positive, disease on both sides. And he had a radical prostatectomy, which showed seminal vesicle involvement and 1 positive lymph node. And that was about 2 weeks ago. And he's now getting ready where to go. He's with a community practice in Connecticut. Does that, other than the age, does that sound familiar to you, Mr. Smith?
Pretty close. And the best advice I got here was medical oncologist. I go to Dana-Farber, and I had reoccurrence after 14 months after RP. So I'm now in I start radiation. I'm on Lupron and Casodex now, and I start my radiation in a week and a half. And I actually went to my initial screening today and got my tattoos. So I asked for skull and crossbones, but they wouldn't do it.
I asked for a Groucho face, and they wouldn't do that either.
Yeah. But I think the best advice I had was to be proactive, be your own advocate, and really research all your options, and to some point trust the doctors, but to the other point do your research, and you have to make your own decisions too.
Yeah.
Who else would like to, has found themselves in a similar situation and pretty much requiring radiation right after surgery and would like to talk to John?
John, this
you good?
John, this is Peter.
Hi.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, you've got a long run for this. Don't think of it as doom and gloom right now. I mean, I'm a Gleason 9 as well. Did surgery, did radiation. I made it about 11 months for my radiation, but I knew it was coming because I knew surgery wasn't going to take care of it all. I also had seminal vesicle invasion. But I had a genitourinary medical oncologist from the get-go, and he's still my guy. So the surgeon plays a role. You won't have much contact with him again unless you need a Lupron shot or something. But they've done their job, and the same thing's going to happen with a radiation oncologist. But you want a genitourinary medical oncologist because you're going to be in it for the long haul, and you want to go with the best because this is your life. So that's why things like Dana-Farber are suggested, or you don't need to go to see this person every month or even every, maybe every 6 months. You can have a phone consultation. I contact my guy every 3 months because I've got pretty serious disease. But I've been with him for 6 years now, and he still has my back. I can communicate with him by text or phone or email, and he comes right back at me, and we discuss things. So this is the kind of person you want. Yale has a very good one.
Name?
Well, mine's in California because I live in Hawaii, so it's probably not the case. But there's a very good guy at Yale named Petrolak, who's I think the head of the department there. I don't know whether is Canton in Eastern Connecticut or Western Connecticut.
Western.
Western. Yeah. So anyway, so there's somebody good at Yale. There's people, there's great people in New York, of course. So a lot of this can be done on the phone, but you want someone who's going to kind of be with you and you feel comfortable and you feel their expertise, because this is an ever-changing field. I mean, I'm doing scans and treatments that weren't even conceived of 3 or 4 years ago, or sometimes even 2 years ago. I mean, it's changing so rapidly, and you want to avail yourself of this, because a lot of local urologists and local people don't keep up with the latest and greatest. It's a rapidly expanding field, so you want to get the best treatment possible.
Yeah. Who is the person that goes to Dana-Farber? Who's your medical oncologist? Is that Peter?
No.
It's Russ.
Oh, Russ.
Yeah, and so I live in southern New Hampshire, and my main MO is in Boston, but I get treatment in New Hampshire, which is, fortunately in my town, we have a Dana-Farber branch. So a secondary MO and a main RO.
Oh, okay.
But I do travel in Boston is probably 45 minutes to an hour away, and I do go in probably once a month to meet with my main medical oncologist.
Okay. What's his name?
Very fortunate to be in a small town with a Dana-Farber branch in it.
Yeah.
You're seeing somebody who works for Sweeney, aren't you, Russ?
Yeah, Roberts.
Roberts is the name. But we can look, John, the first step for you is to see where your PSA is. And you've got to heal, so there's no hurry. You don't have the chat window because you're on the telephone, but the name of the trial that you want to look up afterwards is the Radical trial. Radicals RT, actually. It's Radicals -RT. And you'll find it, if you just Google Radicals RT, you'll find the trial, you'll find an article in the ASCO post about it that's easy to read. And I think that will put your mind at ease that you have a little bit of time. My recommendation, for what it's worth to you from a navigation standpoint, is see where your PSA is, and then we'll help you check on the credentials of your local medical oncologist, because they may be good, we don't know. But whatever happens, be sure to get a second opinion. We guided Russ Smith to Dana-Farber, and not to the radiation oncologist, but to the GU medical oncologist, and I think Russ was very grateful for that. And we generally do that, and we think in the worst case, it'll be in this environment a telehealth appointment that we can help. We can help you arrange. If you can't get it, we'll help you arrange it. Through the contacts that we have. But
Rick, I can add to that because of the advice, I went to the medical oncologist and started my repeat treatment early in my doctor today. My local radio oncologist said that because I started when my PSA was at point one, that we have a much better chance of some type of 5 to 10 year recovery. And he's very optimistic in my treatment. So I started 8 weeks of radiation starting May 4th.
Every day, right?
Every day, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
But ADT, I have to be honest, ADT is worse than the than what I hear. I have not started radiation yet, but the ADT is more difficult than the radiation.
That's what I hear from a couple of guys that I connected up with on Us Too. They all hate it.
Oh, it's not pleasant. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone unless they need it.
Well, I have to intervene there. I mean, I did plenty of hormone therapy, and I was the same age as Russ, maybe a tad younger when I did it, and it was hard. It is not as hard for older men. There are men on this call right now who are more contemporary. I'll let you come in right after, Larry. And they will tell you, don't be as intimidated by the hormone therapy because you will manage it. A lot of it depends on age. Larry, go ahead.
Sorry, Rick. I was talking to my cell phone. I didn't realize I had not muted myself.
Oh, okay.
His wife died and I was talking. Sorry.
Anybody want to just comment who's closer to 70 about their experience with Len? What about you?
Lynn's only 40.
That's true. That's true. But I pretend to be 71. So, yeah, I've been on, as has Peter. We've both been on several cycles of intermittent hormone therapy. And you sound like, your disease is not that advanced that you couldn't also look forward to getting a break from hormone therapy once you start it. I don't recall Peter's experience on ADT. He can tell you about that, but mine was not that bad. When I was diagnosed, I was 65, and I had very few hot flashes. They lasted maybe, 30 seconds and they passed. I'm back on it now, and it's even less of an issue. Not sure why, but it's just the way it is. So as long as you're willing to make sure that you exercise to maintain your bone health and your muscle strength, it doesn't have to be as the kind of nightmare that you might hear some guys describe. I can't predict how you might be affected by it, but I'm Gleason 9 like you. I had seminal vesicle invasion and lymph node involvement just like you, and I'm 6 years out, so it does prolong your life, I'll tell you that.
Okay, all right.
I just want to add in that my father-in-law had prostate cancer, and he was probably 80, 81, and the hormone therapy didn't affect him anywhere near how it's affecting me right now at 58.
Right.
So,
it must have to do with how your testosterone level is before you start.
correct.
Yeah. And you guys gave me the perfect intro to tell a quick Len story. I was with Len in person in September in Kenab, Utah, and we went as a family to the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. We are one of these big soccer mom vehicles. And I was sitting in the front seat with Len, and we pulled up to the booth, and there's a deal there that if you're over 65, I think you get in with the whole vehicle for free. I can't exactly remember the deal, but it was something along those lines, or there was a big discount, or it was something.
So, well, Peter knows it has something to do with the cheap membership, annual membership, right, Peter? If you're a senior.
$10.
Yeah.
$10.
Lifetime.
So $10 lifetime. So Len says, I'd like one of those $10 lifetimes. So the ranger looks at him and she says, you don't qualify for that. He says, yes, I do. So she says, well, let me see your driver's license. So Len gives her a driver's license. She says, you're kidding me. She says, this isn't right. She says, you can't be that age. All of a sudden, there's a voice from the back that says, he is that age. I'm his wife.
I'd never would guess that Lynn was his age. I would guess he's closer to my age.
Anyway, I had said to him before we got up there, I said to him as we were driving up, Len, they're not going to believe you when you ask them for the discount. They are not going to believe you.
I do have to say one good thing is the only time now that I'm 58 that people tell me that I'm young and in good shape for my age.
Is here.
Yeah, while I'm going to, a radiologist or whatever, but that's the one upside.
John, this is Peter again. One other thing that my ears perked up on, you mentioned that your brother had prostate cancer, a lower grade. But did your doctor or anybody talk to you about genetic testing yet?
I'm scheduled to meet the genetic counselor in August.
Okay. Yeah, there's two kinds of genetic testing. One is a germline test to see if you have any inherited genetic mutations, which, if you've got family history of not only prostate cancer, but mother or sisters with breast cancer or anything like that, it's smart to do this. And it's a very simple test. The genetic counselor will tell you about it. All it is a swab, kind of like the COVID-19 thing, but just a mouth swab. And that'll tell you what's going on. And then there's another test, which you might not need right now, but keep it in the back of your mind. Talk to your oncologist about this when you start dealing with them. And that's a somatic test of the tumor tissue. And they can do that from slides from your prostatectomy.
Yeah,
okay.
I would say that's you're probably way too early for the somatic test. So we don't want to confuse you right now. But the germline test is a very good idea. So we're going to have to move on to get around the rest of the guys. What I would say, John, is please send me your email. You can send it to info@ancan.org, Alpha Nancy Charlie Alpha Nancy, ancan.org.
Okay.
Or you can go to ancan.org and you can sign up directly for reminders. We're here every week, either on a Monday or a Tuesday. And we'd love to keep talking to you and keep giving you this type of support so that we can keep you very hopeful.
Thank you all very much for listening.
Pleasure. All right. So let's go to Dennis Correa for a quick update. You can do a song and dance now. We can see you as well if you like, Dennis.
Okay. Yeah, we talked last week about it. I called in and requested to postpone my annual scans up at Mayo because of the COVID-19 risks involved, because I have to go to two facilities. One is the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale, and where my oncologist is at the Mayo Hospital in Phoenix. And I was getting regular emails and so forth from both of them. Emails are on their website, news things regarding the COVID-19. And they a lot of pressure to kind of put off or postpone non-essential not treatments where I was not going in for an actual treatment. So they were just, if you just monitoring or something, and if you could delay that. So I did. And if I had gone ahead and done it, I would have had it today. And I'd be home and it'd be all done. But so now I got to look forward to August 31st for my schedule. And I'll get the scans done at the clinic as scheduled. And that's the pelvic, abdominal, and chest CTs, what they've got set up for me. And And then I'll do the telemed with Dr. Singh from home after I get back. And I have the portal, a patient portal, so they can put the results in my portal. I'll have that to go over with Dr. Singh.
Okay, and you get your Lupron locally. So when are you due for another Lupron shot?
The end of this month, I do the lab, and then the following week, I see my doc here and get my Lupron.
Okay.
First week in May.
Okay. And you go with, you usually get 90 days or 120s?
No, I get the, every 90 days.
90 days, okay. Well, you have, and you can talk to Singh or your local guy about this, but you have a little bit of slack there too. So, if there's any, it's hard to know where we are in Tucson with COVID. I mean, I don't think it's peaked, but it may have done. We don't really know, I don't think.
Yeah, I think we're August 31st. I'll try to give it a little more time to get to that point if we hadn't got there yet. It's still kind of going up in Tucson and Pima County.
Right.
So
right.
we're not
quite there. August, I'm thinking about what you've got to do at the end of the month. That's what I'm more concerned about.
Yeah, I don't have the big issue with going. It's a fairly small facility, so.
Okay.
And I'm confident I can protect myself. I don't have to be there that long either for the lab work or not a lot of waiting around. Like when I go for scans, I could be there, take a couple hours for a set of scans, but the waiting time, sometimes waiting around and then waiting around to see the doc. So.
Right. Anyone else on the call deferred their appointments this week?
I deferred my blood test, which was supposed to happen March 31st. But my last two PSA checks were unchanged at 0.09, so I wasn't concerned about it. But that was all I had scheduled, was just blood work.
Okay.
Similar for me, and now I'm conscious that I'm talking to us guys. I'm skipping a PSA test. It was getting them now every 6 weeks instead of every 3 months. For a while, every month, and then I switched it to every 6 weeks because I'm still on that teeter-totter between adding a second therapy, Zytiga. I'm creeping up, but we're not really at the point where scans are going to show anything yet, and it's sort of like a Fibonacci series or something weird. It like goes up, it goes up, it comes down, it goes up, it comes down, it goes up, it goes up, it comes down, but it's been steadily creeping up, and we're getting to that point where I'll have to do something new, but I can skip this shot. I was even thinking of postponing my Lupron shot a couple of weeks because I always try to get it at 11 weeks instead of 12. The protocol was between 10 and 14 weeks, I think, for Lupron at Sloan. So I always try to get it a little on the early side, but I'm thinking of maybe going a couple more weeks. Just the subway system here in New York City seems pretty crowded, and I feel a little uncomfortable doing that. Anyway, thanks for giving me a chance to say hello.
Oh, sure. No, we always like to hear you. No, I mean, I will say this. If you're thinking at all about skipping your Lupron shots, and there is a significant half-life if you've been on it for a while and you're on longer shots, just check it with your medical oncologist. But my guess is that it won't be an issue, but don't take my word, for goodness sake. But I think most of you probably have a good 2 to 4 weeks. I mean, you all know, for those of you who have come off of hormone therapy, how long it takes for you to register your testosterone. I mean, forever. I mean, I know in my case, it took me 5 or 6 months and I was young. I think it was February until August before I registered any testosterone. So you run that past your docs if you're in any doubt or you have any qualms about not getting your shot right away.
Hey, Rick, did your testosterone ever get back to where it was before?
Yeah, it did. It did strange stuff. It went it was low for a while, and then it went really high, higher than my baseline, which I think was around 500 and something. I think it got up to 700 and something, and then it dropped down and stayed down for a while. And I started taking supplements that didn't do me any good, and then it sort of normalized at around 500, I think. But it took a while to show.
My radio oncologist today said that it'll probably never get back to where it was, but that after 4 or 5 years, if you're cancer free, you could start some type of testosterone booster, but they wouldn't do it before that.
Never's a long time, and I would not say never, because mine got above the baseline at one point, although it didn't hold there. So
nice. The funny thing is my libido actually went up after my second Lupron shot, and the doctor's like, "What?"
After your second Lupron shot?
Yeah, which I did a 30-day, and I just had a 90-day week and a half ago.
And were you on Cassidex?
Yeah, I'm on Cassidex and Lupron.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's a surprising boost.
Well, that's what the doctor said today.
What about the measurement of testosterone? Is he measuring your testosterone? I mean,
shockingly, no. I've never had any measurement at all.
You know, I personally think you should be measuring your testosterone right the way through.
I think I should have had a baseline before we started, and
absolutely. And then you also want to see as you move along to make sure you're staying low.
Yep.
I mean, when I was treated, they actually managed the Lupron shots according to your testosterone level, so they automatically tested you. But most facilities don't do that. But I would insist on getting your testosterone. I mean, Ken Anderson isn't on the call tonight, but he's a stickler and watches his testosterone like a hawk.
I agree, and it's something I should have brought up today, but this, with so much stress and so much things going on that, I didn't bring it up. But I'm kind of shocked that I haven't had a test yet.
It's cheap. It's only a $20 test. I mean, you just got to ask for it. That's all.
Yeah.
Should I ask my MO or RO or what?
Who's ever writing the order up for your blood test, just have them include that with your PSA and everything.
Okay.
And if they give you grief, you tell them you want it.
Okay. Yeah, I thought about that in the last few weeks, is that we should have had a baseline for the testosterone before we started ADT to know where I can come back to.
Yeah, we usually tell people that. I think we mentioned it to you. I know we do usually recommend that, so that then you know where to get back to. All right, I want to keep moving here. Let's go to Dennis McGuire.
Hey, so quick update. Finished my radiation on Friday. I had 5 sessions of SBRT. Managed through the fatigue, mostly on the day of, a little bit the day after. And now really the only thing I have is a little bit of urgency, urinary wise. But that's really all so far. And my next appointment is 6 weeks out, where they're going to just do blood work, see where the PSA is.
So the urgency is not unusual at all. I think most of us who have had radiation on this call at some point soon after we finished have felt the urgency, and it will back off, I'm pretty sure, Dennis. So just live with it, and I think you'll find that it backs off. If it doesn't, there are drugs, but it's basically just the irritation in the bladder that I think you're feeling right now. Question, because you were so fatigued last week after the first 3 sessions, did the walking make any difference, or was that bogus advice?
No, I did. I did make it a point to at least get some fresh air and do a little bit of walking, and that did help to, get the blood circulating.
Good. Okay. Yeah. So a little less fatigue after the second 2 than after the first 3.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Anybody have any thoughts or advice or tips for Dennis now that he's finished his salvage radiation?
Yeah, Dennis, it's Len. I'm sorry, I forgot. They treated your prostate, and I think there was a metastasis somewhere. Was it a lymph node or bone?
Both. Actually, on the left side, they did a left, I think what they call the iliac node.
Right.
And then on the left hip bone, there was a small lesion on the ischium. I got that right?
Yep. Okay. And those were the only mets that lit up on your scan?
Yeah, and those, the one on the bone only showed up on the PET, and the others were large enough to show up on the CT scan.
So you had 5 sessions, SBRT, and they did that over, what was it, 2 weeks?
Yeah, Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay, good luck.
Thanks, Len.
Okay, well, keep us posted, and you're still on your abiraterone, right? Xtandi. Oh, because didn't Morris suggest you switch?
Yeah, Morris talked about switching to Abby just for the sake of switching, I think, but he was not in favor of doing radiation.
Okay.
So I think with my oncologist at Wisconsin going the radiation path, they thought, let's just stay with Xtandi and see where we go with that.
Okay.
Keep our powder dry. Keep the powder dry if we need to go switch it up to Abby.
Did Morris tell you why he wasn't in favor of SBRT?
He thought because my original metastasis was so far reaching that it wasn't worth the risk reward. And he'd been saying that from day one. But I challenged him throughout the last 4 years, and he stuck to his philosophy. Anyway.
Hasn't the general, sorry, Hasn't the general opinion of that kind of shifted more towards going back again and seeing some positive results, even if you have this far-ranging metastasis? Did they? Did they? Was that ever clarified that the statistic showed that you get a better result? It's more virulent, I guess, from the original site than metastasizing from secondary sites. Is that true, Lynn?
I think it's still controversial, Larry. There have been studies that show some progression-free survival increase from what they call site-directed metastases, and some that didn't show benefit. I think there was only one study that showed a survival benefit, unless you remember differently, Rick.
I don't. No, I don't. I mean, I'm not. Are you asking? Are you asking whether the metastasis from the primary site is more virulent than from the distant sites? Is that the question? I didn't quite
Well,
get
I
the
don't mean, I don't know if the word virulent applies exactly to metastasis, because it's usually like about a kind of how virulent a virus or a bacteria. But I meant that it seemed like this debunking the primary or going back did seem to slow down the number of metastasis. And Len, I remember that question about whether or not it contributed to survival. It was unclear, but I always question that. Do all the studies keep track, for survival after long periods of time? Or is that just a specific goal of some studies?
I think most of them try to track overall survival, but prostate cancer is, compared to other cancers, so slow growing that the trial goes on for years before you can show overall survival benefit, and that's why they have these proxies for success, like progression-free survival, PSA decline greater than 50%, things like that. But I'm sorry, I guess I didn't really answer your question the first time, which was that yes, there are some oncologists who believe that by treating the primary, in Dennis's case, the prostate, debulking the prostate can prevent reseeding of metastatic sites by the primary tumor. But I don't know how much acceptance there is of that theory.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, like, in this case, I didn't mean to drift the conversation so far.
No, it's a good question.
It is a good question. And what we can say is that in the past 3 years, anecdotally, we've seen a lot of guys on here whose GU med-oncs have recommended that they treat the gland. I mean, this is 5 years ago, you never saw it. You just never saw it. Now we see a lot of doctors, not right away, but once the disease seems to be more stubborn, they do want to treat the gland if you still have your prostate whole.
Yeah, I know that my doctor, a year ago, Dr. Audio at Sloan started to discuss this more seriously, and was going to recommend the radiation oncologist at Sloan, the one we know, and I can't think of his name at the moment.
Zalewski?
Yeah, I guess that's who it was. I've heard that name so many times, I'm not sure, but I think that's who it was. But and then it just sort of faded, and we never followed up with that recommendation. I think my PSA went down again, and then it went up again. And well, never mind about that part. But I always wonder when I should bring it up to her. As soon as I do, she'll be ready to refer me. But I'm sort of scared. I always think like less treatment might be better than more.
Larry, this is Peter. I think you have to be in a specific study to be tracked for overall survival. I mean, a lot of us, we're all individuals. We're very different. And, I had surgery one place, had radiation another place, and nobody's really tracking my overall survival. I don't think anybody really cares, except me, of course.
You care.
We care.
You guys care, but like the fact that I have never had bone metastasis yet is the primary word right now. 6 years on, but nobody's really tracking this except me. So I don't know whether having surgery and then radiation afterwards has slowed down things and given me no bone metastasis, or it's just a unique function of me. So nobody, so I think you have to be in a specific study to track all that.
Yeah, that's definitely true. You have to be in a clinical trial.
Let me just come back to Larry's question, because it does raise a big issue. Should Larry or any man be concerned about getting the gland treated well into the treatment process?
Was that a question, Rick?
Should you be concerned? I mean, we know a lot of guys that have done it.
Yeah, if I had to do it over, I would want my primary tumor treated for the reason that they speculate that it could reseed metastases. That I think it's worth the risk of side effects. If it's radiation, they're not typically all that bad side effects.
We were discussing, this very hypothetically because she wasn't going to, my med-onc wasn't going to commit without a referral to a radiation oncologist specialist. But we were thinking that, well, it might be true that it would just take a couple of weeks of high-intensity treatment to do it, and the risk of side effects might be very low. And then we sort of left it.
I mean, if it were me, I'd be revisiting it and getting her opinion again and the pros and the cons. And I'd ask her to be specific.
The second I say a word, she's going to refer me to see somebody. I know that.
Well, yeah, but you don't want her to refer you. You want to discuss it with her. It's not. You're not asking her to do it. You want to know why is she recommending it then?
Well, she's recommending the referral to look into it. She wouldn't discuss she would want to see what Seletsky or whoever it is has to say before discussing it further, because she wants to look at what the options are and what kind of radiation would be recommended.
The oncologist should be knowledgeable enough to be able to advise you on treating the gland. She can't treat the gland. But for example, with Ken Anderson, Paul Korn was, the one that he discussed it with. And then when they decided they wanted to do it, I mean, the radiation oncologist isn't the guy who should be telling you should do this, not. In my view, he's the technician who makes it happen. But, this is where Alan, Adele, and I differ. I think that the GU med-onc is the one who's selecting your treatment paths. And if they say, you should go, let's look into it. Your question is, well, can you show me the evidence why you think it makes sense, Doc?
Yeah. No, if she would say that she thinks I should, I would follow up. But she's not sure. She says, well, there's pluses and minuses. It's not that clear to her, and she'd want to get the opinion of, somebody else also. And I appreciate the fact that she does that. That's okay. She may not be the expert on everything.
Right, but what I'm saying is you want to drill down to get as much information from her as you can, because you won't be the first patient that she's referred there.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
And you want to find
I
out what
know.
her experience has been with this.
I just seem to be lucky not doing anything. I'm still, very surprised that everything's going so well, and I'm afraid to touch any. I'm afraid to do anything.
Okay. All right. Well, look, we
Anyway,
gotta
this is not about me. It was about a more general.
No, it is about you, and you should be raising it, and it's a good conversation. But we still have to move along.
Sure.
And we are moving along to Carl Foreman.
Okay. First, I do have to say, Dennis, after hearing your voice for these many months and the first time seeing you, for some reason, I pictured you with hair.
You're muted. You're muted, Dennis.
Once upon a time, Carl.
Okay. For the new guy, John, now only having been, it's only been 2 weeks since your surgery. I know you didn't bring up the incontinence issue, but I'm assuming you're having that. And for myself, having been a recipient of a robotic prostatectomy myself, and I guess no two people are exactly the same. I was told originally it would take upwards of a year. In about 4 months or so, it pretty much cleared up. So I just wanted to share that with you. Okay. I just wanted to question everybody as far as being homebound for the most part, and with this COVID-19 situation. I guess it's in 2 parts. First part is, how is everybody keeping active? Because I'm finding myself becoming more and more lazy as this virus goes on, and I'm in the house. I try to walk as much as I can, but I'm used to having been going to a gym 3 to 4 times a week. Of course, I've been told there are things I can do at home, but I'm not doing a heck of a lot. I've been a bad boy with that. But that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is that I'm assuming, rightly or wrongly, that most of you have gone out to your doctors and asked, hey, how susceptible am I of catching this virus? And if I catch the virus, is it going to be serious for me? Do I have a compromised immune system? And I've been told that, and I have not had chemotherapy, although the different drugs that I've been on and currently am on, I think they might fall into that category. But my oncologist came back to me and said, well, you really shouldn't have much of an issue and you should be able to deal with it very well. So I just want to throw that out as well. So it's a 2-part question.
Okay. Well, I cannot answer for everybody else, and they will. And I don't want to spend too long on this because I still want to get around Joel and Peter, and we've got a couple of other people. But I do want to speak about the state of your treatment and whether it makes you more susceptible, because I've heard several people talk on this, including Alicia Morgan's a couple of times, and her chief of urology, Ted Schaefer, and others. And the consensus is that unless you're taking a drug that may affect your immune system, which is largely chemotherapy or an immunotherapy drug, then you're not at any additional risk. What I don't know is whether a PARP inhibitor impacts your immune system or not. And that's for you, Carl, is the $64,000 question. Len, do you know if a PARP inhibitor would impact? I know it can impact the bone marrow. So probably if it can impact the bone marrow, it probably does make you more at risk. But
one of the most common side effects is anemia. Blood cells are produced in the bone marrow. What about your white count, your white blood cell count, neutrophils, your lymphocytes? Do you know what those are, Carl?
I am slightly anemic, and yes, the white blood cell count is somewhat on the low side. I don't know about the other side.
and lymphocytes too?
I don't recall.
Yeah, you're probably at least mildly immunosuppressed. I don't know if it's clinically significant enough to affect how you would react to the coronavirus. But the coronavirus is a wild card. You see big, strong, young guys sometimes who get crippled by it. And then there was a story in the news about, I think it was a woman who survived the Spanish flu. She was 102 now or something, and she had the coronavirus and she survived that. So who knows?
Have you, Carl, asked your doctors whether the PARP specifically, does the PARP inhibitor put me at greater risk?
Yes, and they said no.
I think you've got to go with what they say then.
Right.
Because we don't
I'm
know.
just curious about everybody else, how they've been doing.
You're on any steroids like prednisone?
Not currently, no. I was on Zytiga or prednisone some time ago, but no, it's been a year.
Yeah, I think where Dennis is going with that is that the steroids can suppress your immune system.
Okay.
But you know, most of the guys who are on steroids here are either on abiraterone or in chemotherapy. Let me throw it open and then we'll circle back on the exercise issue. Who else would like to respond to either of Carl's questions?
Well, let me try to respond, Carl, regarding, you know, how do you keep yourself going and so on. I was playing 18 holes of golf twice a week, and I decided that the risk is not worth it right now for me to keep trying to do that, even though they've reopened some golf courses. But so what I've chosen to do is walk every day. I'm walking every day. I'm fortunate that I'm in a community where we've got walking paths. It's a nice scenery, so it's more than just the exercise. It's a kind of a mental thing too. And so you kind of get out there and the trees and things are budding and flowering. So that helps. And then I've got this other little device that mounts on the back of my bedroom door. And it's a series of pulleys and like rubber bands type thing. And it's amazing the number of exercises you can do with that thing. It takes up zero room because it just, you know, sticks on the back of the door, clamps on, tapes or straps on, I should say, to the door. But I do that a few times a week now. I'll alternate. I'll do the upper body stuff with it as much as I can, and then, you know, go night, take a day off and just walk, and then the next day I'll do the bottom half, body, legs, and so forth. Keep the body parts moving.
Who else? Who else can give Carl a kick up the tuchus?
Oh, are you going to talk to him about MyVictory, or do you want me to?
Either one. Well, I'll do it because I have more of a background. But I was waiting to see who else wanted to talk, who else wanted to chime in on answers to his questions.
Everybody else is lazy? Come on, guys. Everybody else doing exercise somehow?
I'm waiting until we get off this damn call so I can go out walking.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Now, all right. Well, let me jump in with this, so I have been in touch with a fella who I was placed in touch with him through Anne's place, which is where Len hosts a support group meeting, and we've worked with him before. And he is a cancer survivor. In fact, he lost his leg to sarcoma around age 13 at the same time as Teddy Kennedy. He and Teddy Kennedy were buddies in the hospital. And young Teddy Kennedy, obviously. And he's been a pretty amazing athlete, including playing lacrosse at Boston College and running across the country. and he was a trader on Wall Street. And the last few years, he's organized the Connecticut Bike Ride. And his latest project, or I should say that he created a big gym in Fairfield, Connecticut, which was for cancer survivors, which is available to pretty much anybody, that any cancer survivor that walks in. And he's now working on a project which is, I guess, a bit like the Peloton concept, where you sign up, you pay a small monthly fee, and you sign up and you get virtual classes daily. So up until just recently, there were 20 to 25 classes a week, but the governor has shut down the studio. So that'll probably reopen May 15th. He's got a whole bunch of classes that are in the library that you can watch. And I've asked Peter and Len to trial these classes for us to see if it makes sense to push it out to all of our membership. And if we do, then they will actually kick back a small amount to us to contribute to AnCan. So if you sign up, then part of that will, I don't know how much. I'm transparent, so we'll tell you when we know. It won't be very much, but maybe it's $1 a month, maybe it's 50 cents a month from everybody, but that can mount up to. So Len is going to look at it. I hope Peter's going to look at it, but I haven't been able to have a little chat with Peter about it. But I know that Peter's holed up there, and I'm thinking that Carl Foreman may be the perfect guy to be another guinea pig.
Ah.
What does Carl Foreman think?
Maybe.
Maybe?
Maybe.
Okay. So, it is a very compelling concept at times when we are locked in our homes. So if any of you are interested, you can let me know. I've got a few passes here. If I need more, I can get them from him. But what I'm trying to do now is just verify the concept. We haven't done that. I will tell you one thing I don't like about it, nor does Len, is that you have to opt out of it. So you get, on this pass, you get 3 months free, but it's on you to cancel it. Otherwise, they'll charge you. I don't think that's a good idea. I'll talk to the guy about that, but we can't change it right now. It's not my bailiwick, but we will. But I just want to give you a heads up warning. But if anybody on this call today is interested at all in testing it, please let me know. It's called MyVictory. The organization that is partnering with MyVictory is the B Corp, the for-profit corporation with a social purpose. This guy who's putting it together, his organization is called Mission, and the website is yourmission.org, which Len or Jake, maybe one of you can put in the chat window, yourmission.org, and you can read about it there. And if you're interested, let me know, and we can get 90 days to trial it.
Rick, I think he changed it to myvictory.com.
Well, yourmission.org is where you start, and then you click on there, and eventually you get, I think, to myvictory.com. But I
went straight there.
Okay, I would start at yourmission.org only because it gives you the background of the nonprofit side. So you can stick them both in. Somebody stick them both in, and we'll go for it. All right, Carl. I don't know. We're not really getting a lot of motivation for you from this group here.
Yeah, what is this?
I mean,
bunch of lazy people
contemplating his navel. I mean, I think he may have. I think Sylvester may have fallen asleep. We may have done. Oh, no. Oh, he's looking at something. I got worried. I thought maybe we put him to sleep. Okay. Well, I don't know, these guys, I don't know.
No, I'm paying strict attention.
Okay, thank you, Sylvester. Okay, so anybody else want to give Carl a little bit of inspiration before we move on to Joel, and then we'll finish up with Peter.
Carl, why haven't you been walking? Is it too cold?
No, I have been walking. I did today, and when the weather is nice, yes, I do make a point. I go around. The main road around my development is about a mile long, so I've been doing 2 to 3 laps a day. I have like a Fitbit on my arm that I'm anxious to make sure that I get 10,000 steps, but it doesn't happen too often. Well, tomorrow we're supposed to have some possible thunder showers, so it might be more indoor activity.
2 to 3 miles a day is not bad, even though it's not 10,000 steps. That's something.
Yes.
Okay. Joel Blanchette, speak to us. Careful what you say, because we may make you a guinea pig too.
They say that the more exercise you do, the better your immune system performs. So exercise.
Okay.
Anyway, I just recap a bit. When I was at NIH for my PSMA PET scan and my 4 other scans, I was at a point, well, I had to get it, wait till I was at 0.05 before I got in. So I was at 0.07. Then while I was in NIH from November, December, I became a 0.09 PSA. And then Dr. Antonarakis said, okay, go get radiated. So I did 3 SBRT days, 3, 5, and 7 February. Before I took the SBRT, 4 hours before, I took a PSA, and it had gone up to 1.26. On 10 March, Dr. Antonarakis wanted PSA 10 March, April, and May. I did one on 10 March, it was 1.76. I gave the results to Dr. Antonarakis, and he said, well, your next one will go, well, he had predicted it was going to go up, and everybody knows why that goes up. Cancer cells aren't dead yet. And so I did one on 10 April, and it was 1.3. So I wrote back to Dr. Antonarakis, and I said, I'll read you exactly what I said. And what he said, it was very short. Attached to my 10 April 2020 PSA test, you were right, it did go down. I will take the next test on 10 May as you requested. Did the SBRT cause a positive systemic immune response in your opinion? And he writes back, yes, yes, yes. Great news. Your immune system is on fire. So, I didn't know that SBRT would cause a positive immune response, but I did about the same day or the day before. I had read that Dr. Fu Tran at Johns Hopkins during the Oriole clinical trial said that he had found that SBRT was causing positive immune responses. I don't know if that's common knowledge or if that was just during that trial, but anyway, that's why I asked Antonarakis that question. And so he seemed to be very happy that I'd asked that question.
You know, Len and I are probably thinking about the same person right now. Lupron Jim, who years and years ago used to talk to us about the abscopal effect, right, Len? And, you know, the abscopal effect is kind of, who knows what it is, but it's sort of a euphemism for this immune response where the radiation kicks something up in your system, which seems to help fight the prostate cancer systemically. I didn't say that very elegantly, and maybe Len can phrase it more elegantly, but yes, it's this idea that radiation can have that effect has been around for a very long time, and I feel like it's gaining more and more cred. Len?
Yeah, I believe the theory is that the cell destruction from the radiation releases cancer antigens into the bloodstream that the immune system then recognizes and attacks the cancer wherever it is in the body. So you can get a systemic immune boost from radiation. Now, it's still controversial. Even when it appears to happen, it's not very often that it happens. So you may be one of the lucky ones, Joel. Thank your lucky stars for that. Yeah, I hope it happens to Dennis, Dennis McGuire, because he just had SBRT, and maybe it will.
I'm sure.
Thanks, Len.
Yeah, but of course it's not that common. They don't see it too often.
Yes, but my well, the question would be, my PSA is going down most likely because of the SBRT, correct? Not because of the positive systemic response.
It's hard to tell just yet. If it continues to go down, and if it goes all the way down to undetectable, then I think you got a pretty good indication that maybe there was an abscopal effect there.
Okay, I'm sure I have microscopic prostate cancer still, so if I do have a positive immune response, then they might get rid of some of those cells, the microscopic cells that can't be seen on the scans.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So our poor brother Lupron Jim, he was a Gleason 9, and he had the SBRT treatment, and he became undetectable for over a year. Pretty unusual for a Gleason 9. But then unfortunately he developed melanoma, and he succumbed very quickly to melanoma, like within about 6 months.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Yeah, it was a shocker. He's a really nice guy.
He was a good guy. Anybody have any questions or wouldn't want to follow up on this abscopal immune response issue? Okay. I mean, yes.
I was just asking, didn't Carl have a two-part question? One was the coronavirus-related issue, and wasn't there anything else, Carl, or was that it?
Well, part of it was the exercise, and part of it was how do you occupy yourself?
Right.
All in the treatment and the treatment impact, which we discussed.
Yep. Cover both parts, yes.
We got both parts. We got.
Good.
Well, this is good because we still have about 13 minutes. I need about 3 minutes at the end, and Peter has something for us all to consider.
Okay, this addresses something of what Carl brought up. You guys all know that I'm in the middle of chemotherapy right now. I've done two sessions. The third was due a week and a half ago, and I skipped it. So I'm essentially skipping one cycle. I'll do my third one on the 30th in about another week and a half. Reason I skipped it is because here on little old Maui, way out in the Pacific Ocean, we had an outbreak in our only hospital, and 42 people, staff and patients, tested positive. And it freaked me out. So I consulted with both oncologists, my main one in California and my one here on the ground. And decided the best thing to do was punt right now and just skip a cycle. And it was pretty much my determination. They could have rescheduled me for this week or last Friday or whatever, but I wasn't getting good, clear information forthcoming from the hospital. It's very sketchy. It's our only hospital here on Maui. It used to be a state facility, and the state gave up on managing it and put it out for bid, and Kaiser took over. It's not a Kaiser facility, but Kaiser runs the management of it. Kaiser is very secretive and not very forthcoming. But under pressure, they brought in a SWAT team from the mainland over the weekend, and to try to address the issues, put all the nursing staff or whoever it was in 2 weeks quarantine and so forth. Anyway, and contacted all the patients that might have gone there since March 30th. My last chemo was March 19th, so they didn't call me back. So that's how I'm dealing with my situation, because I know I'm immunocompromised and I just didn't want to take a chance. So on the 30th, I'm going back. So in the meantime, I carry on. I do a lot of advocacy for guys here on Maui, as well as working with you guys all over the place. And my heart goes, I've got a couple of guys right now. One I spoke to today, and over the weekend he found me. And all of us on this call, we're under some form of treatment or management, and we kind of know what the score is. And we're kind of cool with that. Whereas this guy called me up, and he was in a total panic. He's got urinary retention. He's got to put, like I did 6 years ago, he's got to push on his gut in order to pee and get something out, and he's suffering. And he's got, he went to the urologist, and they did a digital rectal exam, and something's going on. It's pretty. It wasn't a very good digital rectal exam. He's not had a biopsy yet. The urologist told him he's probably got cancer. And he can't, right now everything's on hold. He can't get treatment. The doctor wants to do a TERP on him, but I told him, maybe, don't run into that. There could be some more stuff going on. And I told him to call the local radiation oncologist and see if the hospital is doing any kind of, whether he can access multiparametric MRIs. I think they do that, but I don't know whether they're doing it now. And he can't even get a catheter put in. He's freaked out about going to the hospital because 42 people, again, tested positive. Do you go to the emergency room? What the hell do you do? And he's not the only person I'm working with. And my heart goes out to people like that are just really reeling in this, because they can't get any diagnosis. They can't get any interim treatment. They can't, get any kind of relief. And it's a tough one. We all run into people like that. What do they say? 200,000 of us in America are diagnosed every year with prostate cancer. Most, it's 3/4 of us, probably of them are low grade disease, but that still leaves 50,000 guys with some kind of serious affliction with prostate cancer that might be something that's symptomatic, that shows urinary retention or blood in the urine or something like that. And we've got to feel this stuff somehow, and it's a tough one. So I just want to mention that it's one of the things I'm working with. Seems to come up a lot, and I'm I've lost most of my hair to chemo, but whatever's left, I'm pulling out, trying to figure out how to deal with these guys, doing the best I can. That's all I wanted to mention.
Peter, where is this guy that you were talking about on Maui?
He's about 4 or 5 miles from me, but I can't go and visit him or do anything like that. We just talk on the phone.
He's on Maui. He is on Maui.
Yeah, he's on Maui. Yeah.
You know, I have a comment, if I may, about COVID. This is purely anecdotal. There's no science for this yet, but there's been a lot of discussion recently about COVID maybe, and apparently men are affected more by COVID than females. You seen that, Peter?
Yes.
Yeah, and they think that it might be has something to do with the testes. And so I'm thinking, and again, this is purely just speculation right now, but I'm thinking that those of us who have shrunken testicles from Lupron or whatever other treatments, maybe we're protected. So it's a thought, it's something, but just in the last 2 days, I've seen a lot of discussions about testicles and COVID. So just a thought. Keep tuned, stay tuned, and hope that it's actually true.
I didn't even know that Lupron shrunk your testicles.
Well, it does. I mean, at least it did mine. I mean, it makes them effectively unusable. So, and they do shrink.
It shrinks everything.
Yes. So I'm half serious, half kidding.
Yeah, no, I haven't read anything on that, but I other than I have read that it affects men more than women.
Right.
Peter, the only thing I would say, the way to advise this fella you're just talking about is he needs to get to a doctor where COVID isn't that big a problem, even if it means flying to one of the other islands, because it sounds like any day now he could have complete urinary retention. He'll be in agonizing pain, and he'll have to be rushed to the emergency room anyway. So he might as well go to a facility, maybe on one of the other islands that's a little safer, and be worked up, be diagnosed.
Yeah, he called his local urologist here, who I know. I've never seen him professionally, but I know his front desk clerk well. And I mean, they were going to push him off to a phone consultation. So I said, call this guy back and just tell Janelle, who I know, said, listen, this is urgent. You got to see me. Because I said, listen, you don't have to go to the emergency room. A urologist can put a Foley catheter in you. This is like a 20-minute thing. It's not that big a deal. And just, and I think he's going to get some, I called in my chips on this one. I said, use my name. She knows me. Just tell her this is important. And you got to push me to the front of the line. So I think they might do it. But, it's sad. It's, I live in an unusual place where you just can't, you got to get on a plane and fly someplace, and that has its own risks and so forth, because you got to take a cab there, to wherever you're going. And it's kind of crazy, Becky, but I chose to live here. This is paradise.
Is this, Peter, is this the same urologist who wants to do a TURP?
Yes. Yeah.
That's the only issue, because he's going to say, well, I told you what to do. You need a TURP. And as you rightly say, no, he needs to get another opinion before he gets a TURP. So, maybe Len is right. I mean, don't send him back to the guy who wants to give him a TURP. Send him to somebody who's going to give him who's more of an oncologic urologist, and he's get on an airplane.
Yeah, but it sounds simple, but it's, I'm just addressing Carl's issues about what to do in the age of COVID. It's not that easy. It's not that easy finding doctors, and they want to do, they want to do a phone consultation first, and they want all your records and all. I mean, it's not an easy game right now, especially if you need attention pretty fast. So I'm I don't know. I'll keep you up to date on how it's going. I think he'll be seen by someone tomorrow, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. So let me just take the last couple of minutes to remember someone who we just learned today passed on the 11th of April. Some of you with long memories will know exactly. Some of you met him and his wife. They're a Chinese couple from San Francisco. His name was Dan Louie. Dan used to come on our calls fairly regularly. Then it sort of got slower, and the sicker he got, the less often he showed up. He was diagnosed metastatic in 2013. We started working with him in 2014. I did, actually. I think it was through UCSF peer-to-peer originally, connected me to him, and then we got him onto our calls. And we actually, Len and I think, well, I met him with Dom, God rest his soul, and Peter at a dinner we had for people. It was before AnCan, but it was for people that attended our calls in Los Angeles. I don't think you were there, Len. Oh, yeah, you were.
I don't ever remember meeting Dan. I remember him being on the phone.
Yeah, it was that year. It was the year that you and Dom shared a room at the PCRI conference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and Peter, I knew them fairly well and saw them in other support group meetings. The bottom line was essentially that Dan's disease morphed and became untreatable. He, as recently as January, he tried Keytruda. He didn't get a response. And he was getting sicker and sicker. He went into hospice sometime in March and passed on the 11th of April. He put up a very, very courageous show against this disease, and frankly, probably lived quite a bit longer than anybody expected, given that he was diagnosed metastatic. I have in my notes, although May says this wasn't the case, but I do remember this, that he had Mets in his skull when he was first diagnosed. But he was just a sweet and nice guy, and he had a bulldog terrier for a wife who made sure he got what he needed, because I don't think he would have gotten half of that if it hadn't been for May. And she kept him around for a lot longer than we thought he would be, but he has now gone. She sent me a video of the memorial service. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I just wanted to remember him fondly. That's all.
Well, the service is the 21st of April.
Tomorrow. It's tomorrow.
Service tomorrow. I didn't even look carefully. Okay.
Yeah. So she gave you a password so you can watch the service.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, I just been so rushed. I didn't look carefully. Anybody else have any memories of Dan and May that they'd like to share?
Yeah, I would like to extend my deepest sympathy to that family. He and I were members of the Us Two group that met once per month at St. Francis Medical Center there in San Francisco. So
Okay.
I've known him for many years. And thank you so much for bringing this to our attention.
Thanks. If you like, I can send you May's email address.
I would appreciate that very much.
Will do. Yeah.
Rick, send Sylvester the email with the link for the
Okay,
service.
I'll try and do that right after. Anyone
Anybody
else?
else interested?
Anybody else want to share anything?
Yes, very sweet couple. I met them in a support group several times in San Francisco when I happened to be there for treatment. And, yeah, it's sometimes people drift in and out of these meetings. We might see someone consistently for a month and then never see them again for a year and a half, and all of a sudden they might pop in again and whatever. But any of us that are consistent here, we never forget anybody. I mean, we're a small enough network that, and we care about people. When we don't hear from someone for a long time, the question comes up about, what about so and so? What's going on? We haven't. Has anybody heard from them for the last couple of months or whatever? And Dan and May were certainly amongst those. Yeah, it's the bottom line is we really do care about each other. I mean, that's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, guys. Well, I'm sorry to end this on a downer, and I thank you to Jake for reminding me to bring it up. I usually start with this, but it slipped my mind. So we're closing with it today. We are back next Tuesday, the 28th. We have a caregivers call tomorrow. If any caregivers would like to join or pass the word on to any caregivers. The other thing I had there was one other thing, but it'll wait until next time. I was going to raise something that actually pertained to Carl, which is sort of interesting and fun, but it'll have to wait till next time. Okay. All right, everybody. Good night. And if I don't speak to you before, see you next week. Bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.